One rare thing in the music industry that does happen every once in a while is when musicians from like different bands come together and form like a different kind of side project or supergroup. Like either for to just make an album or when they collaborate for like a specific movie soundtrack. I mentioned in a previous video, like 2 falls ago, about this band called Class of '99, which consisted of, the vocalist from Alice in Chains and Tom Morello from, Rage Against the Machine. They, you know, they collaborated to perform their cover of Pink Floyd's Another Brick in the Wall Part 2 for the soundtrack to the movie The Faculty. But they formed that band just strictly for that movie, just strictly for that soundtrack, and they only made that one, specified song. They have not made anything else ever since. And it's it used to be very common, like especially during like the mid to late '90s when different musicians like come together, you know, like for those kind of soundtracks to just I'm not sure, I'm not exactly sure why, but I mean I guess they thought it was like pretty cool. But I mean it is pretty cool, but it doesn't happen as much anymore. But back in the day there was, you know, Filter and the Crystal Method, they collaborated and they made this single, Can't You Trip Like I Do, for the soundtrack album to Spawn. You know, a lot of songs similar to that had, you know, the entire soundtrack, consisted of mostly like a mix between like rock, metal, and electronica. Like rock and electronica groups would come together and make those songs, similar to the soundtrack album to the movie Judgment Night. You know, like for example, on that soundtrack there was Helmet and House of Pain. They came together and performed the single Just Another Victim. I mean, like I said, like along with the Spawn soundtrack, the Judgment Night soundtrack had a mix between you know hard rock bands and hip hop groups of the '90s, and then and even just like one band, like one musician would get together with a band, just for one song on a soundtrack. Like Ozzy Osbourne collaborated with Type of Negative uh, for their song Pictures of Matchstick Men. I think that's a cover of another song from years ago. Um, they did that for the soundtrack to Private Parts, the Howard Stern film. But like a more common, like more like a more common thing that would happen, you know, is when musicians would get together and form like super groups. You know, either just to because just probably just to like release only like 1 or 2 albums though. Not to do anything big. Just to you know do that. For example, Mad Season. You had Lane Staley from Alice in Chains, the the guitarist from Pearl Jam, and then the drummer from Screaming Trees. They got together for that one album. Then there's Audio Slave. Tom Morello is the guitarist, and then Chris Cornell from Soundgarden. He did the vocals. But they have made 2 albums. You know, and then there's them Crooked Vultures. For that, there's the lead vocalist from Queens of the Stone Age. Then you get Dave Grohl on drums and backing vocals, and then there's the bassist and keyboardist from Led Zeppelin. He does the bass and the keyboards for them Vultures, and that was only for one album. And so yeah, those bands are very well known, despite the fact that they did not make too many other albums after making the albums that they have made. But there is like a a band that kind of similar, but it's more of like a side project. It's like not necessarily a super group, but like like I said, a side project, and like it's actually a band I've never heard of until now, and it's this band. Unlike the bands that I mentioned, that are mostly like hard rock and whatnot, this is this is industrial. This is a band called C-TEC. They're this is like their very first album, made in 1997, called Darker, from Wax Trax Records. This was actually not their very first album. Originally, before making this album, they were called the C-TEC Project, you know. But they had like they released like three albums before releasing this album. But then they changed you know musicians. Like the lead singer from Front 242 does the vocals for this band, and then there's also like this guy who was involved in this band that I actually never heard of until I came across this band called CUBANATE. I think they're from it's an industrial band that I think they're from the same record label, or they were probably either that or TVT Records. And like I really enjoy this album. I really enjoy like all the songs on this one album, despite the fact that that this band has not made too many. They came out with like three albums after, including this one, after they disbanded the C-TEC Project. And like this is probably their most relatively well-known album to date, because like this is like the only album I came across when I actually found this at a record store. They used to be in my neighborhood, but I guess they closed down. I guess it was only for like a temporary basis for how long they would be open. But yeah, and that sucks ass. But this is a good this is a good band, highly underrated, extremely obscure. They barely, I don't think they reached any charts, but all the stuff on this album is awesome. It's like, mixed between industrial and electronica, very similar to bands like, my favorites that I have mentioned in previous episodes, Cam FDM and Nitzer Ed, and like, just a ton of good stuff. Like I said, I am still building up my industrial collection. I am still scrounging through like websites to like to give me an idea of which band I should get into. I'm definitely like still scrounging either through like record shops or you know the internet to see what I can find. My favorite on this is Being Nothing. That's track 5 of this album. Well, the whole album. There's not really any singles on this, which is actually a good thing, because I mean, no, it is actually a really good thing, because like just because an album does not have singles or a music video to go along with it does not make it bad. I mean, back in the day, like back in like the 70s, most rock groups never didn't really release music videos until MTV came around. So I guess that's better that way. So the lesser known, the better. I guess they want to keep a low profile. They have broken up for quite a long time, but and I'm still like looking for the next 3 next two albums that they made after this one. And like and I could definitely get into their like previous, project and see what they were like. But as of right now, this is the only album of the band that I have. But like I said, I like it. I purchased it for like $4, which is a really good deal for CDs nowadays. And like, if you, as I said before, industrial rock is an acquired taste. But if you're into that kind of shit, like I am, I check this band out. I definitely give this band a go. So, C-TEC, their album Darker, released in 1997 through Wax Trax Records. If you find this album anywhere, please check it out and see what you think. Thanks for watching.